is the most
We're going to interrupt 2020 at this hour because we have breaking news just moments ago out of Baghdad, Iraq, that Saddam Hussein has been executed. We're going to pause first to let the rest of the network join us.
This is an ABC News special report.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Vargas at ABC News headquarters in New York, and we have breaking news from Iraq. Former Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein has been executed for crimes against humanity. The execution happening, death by hanging, outside the green zone just a few moments ago. We received confirmation of this at ABC News, and ABC's Jonathan Karl joins us now with details. Jonathan, we knew this was going to happen supposedly before sunrise in Iraq. Sunrise scheduled at 7:06 Iraqi time, 10:06 East Coast U.S. time.
Yes, and a senior U.S. military official in Baghdad has just told me that, in fact, the execution did take place as planned. It took place just a short time ago. Saddam Hussein was executed, as you mentioned, by hanging, and he is now, in fact, dead. The era of Saddam Hussein in Iraq is over. Of course, the era of violence in Iraq continues, and as this hanging has taken place, and as the news is now breaking on Arab TV networks that are seen in Iraq, the military is taking preparations on a heightened security alert for possible reprisal killings in Iraq. But the killing of Saddam Hussein has happened. The execution is over.
There had been reports, as you know, John, that hundreds of people were volunteering to be the person who pulled the lever. Do we have any idea who was present at the execution?
There were a number of Iraqi witnesses that had been lined up in advance, had been given advance notice that they would have to appear to be witnesses. We don't know the details of exactly, who, so to speak, pulled the trigger in this hanging. We don't have those details. We expect we'll get those shortly. All the U.S. official I spoke to just a short time ago told me is that, in fact, the execution went as scheduled, as planned, death by hanging.
And do we know whether or not it was videotaped? There had been word it might be, and we know that his capture, for example, in December, was videotaped several years ago. Was this execution also taped?
Yes, the Iraqi government had made plans to videotape the execution, the preparations for the execution, the whole thing. What we don't know, Elizabeth, is whether or not they will actually release that videotape publicly. There have been some discussion and debates within the Iraqi government on that, so we don't know if we will actually see the videotape, but we are told that, in fact, this execution was videoed. All
right, Jonathan Karl, thank you. For almost 20 years, Saddam Hussein was public enemy #1 of the United States. The U.S.-led invasion in Iraq in 2003 was aimed in part at toppling his repressive regime. In April of that year, American forces took over Baghdad and fully occupied the country. As coalition troops entered the city, Iraqis flowed into the streets to celebrate the end of Saddam's rule. Saddam himself went into hiding, and news of his capture came 8 months later, announced by then U.S. Administrator Paul Bremer.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Saddam was found in an underground spider hole at a farmhouse near his hometown of Tikrit. In November of this year, Saddam was convicted last year, Saddam was convicted by the Iraqi High Tribunal and sentenced to death by hanging by ordering the massacre of 148 people in the northern Iraqi town of Dujail in the early 1980s. The victims were Shiite men and boys rounded up and killed in retribution after someone in the town opened fire on Saddam's motorcade in a failed assassination attempt. Just this week, an Iraqi appeals court upheld that verdict and said that he should hang within 30 days. It took much less time than that. There are fears, as John Karl said, that the execution could inflame Iraq's political divide. Once again, the former Iraqi leader, Saddam Hussein, has been executed in Iraq. We're going to return now to regular programming. For those of you watching 2020, we'll have much more on Saddam Hussein coming up. And you can get the very latest anytime at abcnews.com and our broadband and cable channel, ABC News Now. I'm Elizabeth Vargas in New York.
For continuing coverage of this story, stay with ABC News, abcnews.com, and ABC News Radio. This has been a special report from ABC News.
And he may be dangerous. Up close, he says, that's not the case.
I've had Tara Reid threaten to throw me in a pool. I've had Nicole Richie come up to me at the coffee shop that I work at every day and scream, "Call me anorexic to my
We trace what led to the gallows, the torture of his people, the wars with America, the hunt and his capture, cowering in a spider hole.
We got him.
Then, a trial marked by outbursts, killings, and a verdict that was celebrated and condemned.
Death penalty by hanging till death.
Up to the minute details of the death of a dictator.
Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Vargas. As you just heard, Saddam Hussein, the former leader of Iraq and one of the most infamous tyrants in recent history, was executed a short time ago. The man called the Butcher of Baghdad, guilty of crimes against humanity, thought responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of Iraqis, was hanged in Baghdad just a short time ago. It was a method of death he considered demeaning, having wanted instead to be shot by a firing squad. There was no mercy for the man who showed no mercy to so many. ABC's Terry McCarthy is live in Baghdad. Terry, word is already out on many of the Arab networks of this execution. What is the reaction there?
Elizabeth, so far it's been fairly muted here. It's still early hours of the morning. The sun has not yet come up. It has indeed been out on the Arabic networks, as you say, but the fusillade of gunfire that we will expect to hear later on has not yet taken place here. It's fairly quiet. Most people probably still in bed, and they will wake up fairly soon and discover the news that Saddam Hussein indeed has been executed.
This was rushed in a sense because there is a very important Muslim holiday beginning at dawn this morning, Eid. Tell us about that and why it was so important to have the execution done before it began.
That's right, Elizabeth. As you say, this holy Holy Eid festival starts when the sun comes up. Behind me, it's starting to glimmer in the sky, but it hasn't yet come up. The Prime Minister pushed this through very quickly. He had a meeting last night, Baghdad time, about 10 p.m. with senior US officials in Baghdad to discuss the final details for the hanging, and then the actual hanging took place less than 6 hours after that meeting ended. So they were really in a hurry to get this execution done before the Holy Festival of Eid starts here.
It would have been considered, in fact, by many to be sacrilegious for that to have happened on the holiday.
That's right. The Festival of Eid, it's Eid al-Adha. It celebrates or commemorates the preparedness of Abraham to sacrifice his son. And this is a very holy time for Muslims. It's a time when people give alms to the poor, when they pray. It's generally regarded as a time of peace. Executions would be very taboo. And for that reason, we understand that the Prime Minister wanted to get the execution done before that festival started.
And as you know better than most, Terry, Baghdad is under a state of constant lockdown because of all the attacks. There is real concern that there might be reprisal attacks. U.S. forces and Iraqi military forces are on high alert for that?
Yes, we do know the US and the Iraqi forces here are on high alert. That started yesterday. Interestingly, they have not yet announced a curfew in Baghdad. Normally, when such big announcements come through, the Iraqi government has put a curfew on Baghdad for several days. That has not yet happened. There have been some reports that there may be some kind of a curfew in Tikrit, which is, of course, Saddam Hussein's hometown. But so far, there hasn't been an extended curfew announced for Baghdad.
All right, Terry McCarthy live in Baghdad this morning. When we come back, we'll have much more on the life and death of a dictator and how he came to power.